Howdy doody, everybody. Welcome to another Make It Monday with me, your host, Brandon Groce, and Ryan Schaefer, your other co-host of this amazing Monday ordeal. I hope you guys in the chat are absolutely wonderful because of how my beautiful bedroom, this is not my bedroom. Anyway, how beautiful Ryan and spectacularly happy he looks. Well, both of us really. We had a great holiday. I hope you guys did too, whether you're in the US or you guys just had a great weekend and you're here with us now yet again. All right, that was a really long intro. We didn't need to do all that, but I'm happy to see you guys here in the chat. Let us know if this is your first time watching, you're ready, you're a usual contender in our chat. Let us know how you're doing. Say hello, how you feeling, how your weekend was, and with that said, Ryan, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Just good. The nice, he's like, Brandon, you talk too much. I'm just keep it nice, sweet, and simple. I'm glad that you're good. So, without me opening my mouth, tell everybody a little bit of what is in store for those who are with us today.
Today we're gonna be building 3 sections for like one of my favorite video games, Rocket League, and we're gonna be focusing on making responsive buttons. So I'm gonna show you kind of 3 techniques, to create responsive buttons, and we're gonna be designing this in like a new, or not new trend, but like a popular trend, like the bento box grid style.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome. I'm glad we get cool things. We get video games, we get an awesome trend on top of this, and we get Rocket League. What's not to like? So, all right, we're going to move on to your screen, and I will let you begin.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm going to show you guys what we're going to be building. So here we have a hero section. These right here are going to be responsive buttons. Down here, this is also going to be a responsive button. And then this one right here is going to be another method of making a responsive button as well. So let's go ahead and start building it. The first thing we are going to do is create a pretty large section for our hero section. So let's make it maybe like 900 pixels for now. That's probably a little too big, so we'll do like 800 pixels. And for this, I do want to start by adding some padding, because I want all of our grids and website content to align together. So for the header, I added 2.5% padding. So what I'm going to do is add that here as well. So I'm going to do 2.5%. And if we press this little lock icon, it's going to apply that to all sides. So now we have 2.5% padding on all sides. For the inside of this, what we're going to do is create 2 rows. So I'm just going to use the cells and we're going to add 2 rows. So now we have a row up here, a row down here. And then for the grid spacing, I want to add 2.5 VW. In this case, 2.5 VW and percent are kind of the same thing in this instance. And then I want to make this top area a little bit bigger. So we're going to come to the middle of this, our cells, and we're going to drag this down a little bit. Perfect. For this top area, I want to split this into 2 columns. So the good thing about cells is we can easily just add this little option here that says split vertically. So we can do that. Once again, we don't have space here, so we can come down to the section and add 2.5 VW gap here. So now we have a left and right column on our top row. The first thing I want to add here is an image. So let's go to our media. And as usual, we have assets available for you guys to download if you want to follow along. I believe that link is in the community, which is in the description, correct?
Correct. And thank you for bringing that up. I was like, I do not want to, I totally forgot about that house cleaning item. I was like, I don't want to budge Ryan either. And I was like, I still need to mention that. But yes, all the things you just mentioned are in the link in the description.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ryan.
No, you're good. So for this image, we're just going to stretch it. And I want to add a little bit of a background. We'll actually make the background color 100%, and we'll lower the image opacity a little bit, because we are going to be putting white text here and we want the text to pop a little bit more or be more visible. So we're going to lower the image opacity. And then for the corners, let's round these to 64, not 640. And I think that looks pretty good. And now let's just go ahead and add some text. So I'm going to add a heading 1 here. It's probably going to be too big. Indeed, it is. But let's go ahead and make it white for now. And I'm going to change this to, I forgot what I had set here, season 12. And I'll also go ahead and just copy this text here so I can just paste it in later. I'll go ahead and place this text. We're going to make this text 24 pixels in size. And then we're going to set the responsive behavior from scale proportionately to hug. And that's going to get rid of all of this extra space that we aren't using. And it's going to look like that. Let's go ahead and make sure we send it over here to the left. And now our text should look like this. Fantastic. Underneath that, let's add just a simple paragraph. Let's paste in the text that I grabbed from the other page. I'll place it right underneath the season 12 text. And I'll resize it just a little bit. Underneath that, I just want to add a simple button. So let's go over to our button layout here. We'll grab this one. And we'll say, learn more. But I do want to change this text to maybe like a little bit of a bolder font. So we'll do the Wix made for text bold. For the design, I just want to set the background color to white, and I want to set the text color to like our dark blue, and I'll resize it a little bit, and I'll bring it right underneath our text content here. We can grab all 3 elements and stack them together. So for this button to be responsive, if you've used buttons here in Wix Studio, you know that these buttons they scale proportionately and they have scaling properties. So that means on bigger screens, the button gets bigger, and on smaller screens, like let's say mobile, the button gets really small. So what I would typically do for buttons like this, like normal buttons that are built into Wix Studio, is I would leave scale proportionately turned on for desktop. But then if we go down to tablet, I would actually set these to fixed sizing here. And that won't affect the desktop. The desktop will still be responsive. But for tablet and mobile, it's going to be a set size. So I might set this to like 100 pixels in width. Maybe we'll do like 42 pixels in height. And then we'll set the text size to like 13, because I don't typically like going below 13 on tablet and mobile. So let's go ahead and like resize this a little bit. Obviously, we would need to change this text as well. For this heading text, maybe the minimum could be like 22 pixels. And then for this paragraph text, we'll leave it at 13. And we could resize it a little bit to something that looks like that for tablet. And then for mobile, you'll see the button doesn't get smaller because everything in Wix Studio cascades downwards. So that's really nice. So for responsive button, or making buttons responsive like normal Wix Studio buttons, that's the process that I usually do. But let's go ahead and just create this section again. Or for this column over here. So I'm going to copy this image. I'm going to paste it over here. We'll stretch it and we'll change the image out really quickly. And I'm just going to choose like a random image really quick. Then I'm going to copy this stack over here and paste it over here. What I will say is if you want things to be consistent, align it to the left and bottom. And maybe we'll do like 5% and 5% for the left and the bottom. And then we can do that for this one over here as well. So we'll undock it from the top. We'll dock it to the bottom, and we'll set both the left margin and the bottom margin to 5. So now both sides, the stack is in the same exact space, and it looks pretty clean. For the next...
Hey, Ryan, before we actually go into this, because, and I think you've answered this question, I'm about to pop up to you in other sessions that we've had, but it's, I think we actually had a good conversation about it. Essentially, and Alana's asking this in the chat, and it's not just Alana, it's myself as well, and the tooltips that kind of discuss what hug, what relative means, what, all those options in terms of responsiveness, what that really means. And you showed this in other sessions before, but I think what would be great if we have the time to do it, because this is all dependent on you. You're like, all right, that would be nice, Brandon, but we're running out of time. But I think if we could somehow today, or even in the two little grids that you just made, if we could discuss how to use Wix Studio's new features of just relying on the hug, the stretch, those features versus kind of what the old platform Editor X had us do with the what was it? The CSS grid is now called. How do we move the people who are in Editor X? How do we transition from just going straight to the custom CSS grids and using the new Wix Studio features? Like, and I know yourself, somebody who is stuffed his nose in Editor X since day one, and now is doing amazing things in Wix Studio. How can you help us think about transitioning to the new features Wix has and not being scared of the new responsive features?
Okay.
I know that was a loaded question. I was talking for 3 minutes.
I will say that Editor X and Studio they seem to have a lot of the same features. They might just be placed in different ways. And I think Wix Studio has additional features as well that make things a little bit easier. For example, with this text element here, if I turn on advanced sizing, you will see that this is the sizing properties that we're pretty much used to from Editor X, but in Wix Studio it's more simplified. So for example, for this text element here, we have all the space here. Maybe we don't want that space there. So in Editor X, we would have set this to like max content, right? However, in Wix Studio, if I just turn off the advanced sizing, we now have this response behavior here, and we can just set this to hug, and that basically does the same exact thing as max content. So it basically just gets rid of all of the extra space in that element that isn't being used.
Gotcha.
Fixed basically means like it's a fixed size. It gets rid of the responsive behavior, so it's not going to get bigger and it's not going to get smaller. It's a fixed size, and you'll see that font scaling is turned off for fixed. For wrap, let's say we have a text element that's this long, and we just type a bunch of text. It will, once it reaches its bounding box, it's going to wrap the text to the next line. And then finally, scaling proportionately is what you're probably already used to. It doesn't get rid of this extra space, but it gets smaller and bigger as you change the size of the screen. But what I will say is if you make this text longer, it still kind of like wraps. I would say with wrap, it seems like there isn't a way to like change the scaling text, but let me check this. I wonder if I messed something up. Oh, okay, I just didn't have it clicked. So scale proportionally, you can change the scale text, and same with wrap. But yeah, is there anything else you wanted to kind of cover about the changes between Editor X and Wix Studio?
Yeah, and I think to go a little bit more deeper into, so Alana's specifying the question about a paragraph specifically, because I think the general question is like, all right, when we have a section for example, the season 12 things that you've built look good in desktop. They look okay in tablet. But now when we start to get to mobile, like how do I make sure I'm using the proper features to make sure everything responds how I want? So for example, her question here is, so should all paragraphs be set to wrap and or scale? I know that's a hard thing to say yes or no to, because it really depends on what you're making, right? But what type of setting do you like to set your stuff to so that things, at least from a baseline, are responsive when you go from the get-go?
Right.
And I think that's probably relative, right? That's that setting.
What I will say is for sections like this, where I put the content here and it's not really going to change, I would typically just leave it as, or as like hug or scaling text or wrap. But what I will say is when you have content that is dynamic, which can change, I would always choose wrap. Because, for example, if we have, like, let's say we have an e-commerce shop, this is one item, and this is going to be another. This item, like the product name, could be like super long, right? So we don't want it kind of messing with our design on tablet or mobile. So if we set this from hug to wrap, and we set the width of it so it never goes past this width, we'll always make sure that we have a nice design on all breakpoints. So wrap will change the design vertically, but it won't mess things up horizontally, which is always like the best case. You don't want to mess things up horizontally, because what could happen is, like, let's say you have a really long product name and it goes like off the screen and kind of interferes with other objects on the screen. You're typically you will want to use wrap, so that way, let's say we put the end of it here, and so it just goes to the next line if the title is really long. I hope that helped answer your question.
Yeah, I think so, and thank you for that. I think it's also, you have to play around with it. I think that's what we have kind of come to discuss in these Make It Monday sessions. Like, there's not one setting that rules them all. It's kind of just like the safe one is like relative, and if relative, when you start sizing down the screen and you don't like how Wix Studio has tried to smartly like scale your content, then that's when you go into the individual elements and say, okay, I want this to be fixed, I want this to hug, I want this to wrap, because I want these things to have this particular behavior. But other than that, like, and Alana and everybody else who's watching here, whether you're here with us now or later, like, if you have some questions that hopefully we're able to answer here live, but definitely with our sessions every Tuesday and Wednesday, those are the times where we have like an hour strictly to be like, hey, I'm trying to do this, send us your link, all that stuff, and we can help you specifically with how to maneuver things. But we're trying to show you guys from A to Z how to build things Monday, Tuesday, when what we're building puts seeds of questions in your head. Come into the Discord Tuesday and Wednesday at 1 p.m. EST, and then we'll have you back there. But thank you guys for your questions. All right, Ryan, go ahead.
And to kind of piggyback off of you a little bit, right here on desktop, this button, we set it to scale proportionately, but on tablet and mobile, we did set it to fixed. So if something isn't working for you on the smaller breakpoints, you can always change the responsive behavior and edit it manually as well. So that's also a good feature as well. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the second responsive button. And for this one, we're not even going to use the button element at all. Well, actually, I take that back, but you'll kind of see what I mean by that. So for this, we're going to create a 3-grid system. So let's add a repeater down here, and we'll stretch it. For this repeater, I want to add a vertical gap of 2.5 VW, so it matches all of our other grid gaps. For the background color of the item, let's go ahead and just remove that. And then I do want to add a container inside of this. We can stretch it. Let's make this a dark blue color. And then for the corners, I think I chose 48 for this one. Perfect. Inside of this, we're just going to add a simple text element. So we'll just grab this title. We'll make the text white. And we'll make this like our heading 1 text, just so we have our font. And then let's do like 42 in size. Make the text white. And we'll set it to hug. And we can easily center it by just going down to the position and pressing this align to center option here. Perfect. So I think this one was Rocket Pass. I think I'll need to double check this really quick. Esports and news. So I'll go ahead and change the text here. But since this is going to be a custom button, I do want to create a hover effect here. So what I'm going to do is grab one of these containers, and we're going to head over to interactions, and we're going to add a hover interaction. For this hover interaction, I do want to apply the hover effect to itself. So we're going to select color, and once that has been added, we'll press adjust animation, and we'll choose like a lighter blue, but not like a very bright blue. And you can adjust the duration, the delay, and the easing properties here. But once we are happy with that and we hover over, we'll see that we have a nice little hover state. But what I will say is the buttons are not clickable yet. So what we actually need to do is we're actually going to grab a button. We're going to place it in the container. We'll go ahead and press change text, and we'll remove the text from this. And then we'll also, and then here we can also link it to another page wherever we want it to go. Before this button, if we head back over to the design, let's remove the background color. Let's also make sure we remove it from the hover state as well. So this button is going to be completely invisible. We're going to send this to the top left. And for the sizing properties, I'm going to turn on advanced sizing for this. And for the width, we're just going to set it to 100%. So it's going to span 100% of the width. And then for the height, we'll also set this to 100%. So now we have a button that's basically invisible. And here it is. But what I will say is I do need to remove the text from these buttons here as well. So let me go ahead and do that. There we go. So now we have a responsive button that has a nice little hover effect. And once you link it to other pages, it's pretty easy to add this. It's pretty easy to add this effect and edit it for the other breakpoints. You can see here on tablet, it's already going to look nice. And then for mobile, you can leave it as like this. Or if you wanted to, you could easily set this to 1 item per row and have something that looks similar to that pretty easily. So I like making custom responsive buttons like this for big elements like this, or like for repeater items. I like creating buttons like this. I think it looks pretty clean, and it makes the entire repeater item clickable. So even with like e-commerce products or custom blog layouts, I do like adding just a hidden button underneath or over the content to add that, like, to make the entire item clickable. But now we are done with this section. We can go ahead and move on to the next one. So let's add a section. For this one, let's go ahead and add our 2.5% padding. We can apply it to all sides. But what I will say is this section right here already has that 2.5%. So I'm just going to remove it from the top right there. So now everything should be equal spaced. It should look pretty nice. And then for the size, let's set it to like 700 pixels. And inside of this, I just want to add a video. So let's go over to add. We'll go to media and we'll do a video box. Video box. There we go. We'll drag this out. Let's stretch it. And we'll go ahead and change the video out to the Rocket League video here. For the contour, it's basically the rounded edges. So we'll go ahead and turn this on and we'll add like 64 to the rounded edges. And it's not really appearing right now, but if we go ahead and preview, press play. Okay, there it is. Okay. So the video is there. What I will say is if we go into behaviors, we want it to automatically play. We don't want it to pause, and we want it to loop. And we'll also make sure that sound is disabled. Lastly, I do want to add like a background color. So to do that, what I'm going to do is just right click and, we'll need to unstretch it. Then we'll right click, place it in a container. Then with the container, we can add a background color. And we'll add the 64 pixel rounded edge and we'll stretch it. And then we'll grab this video element here. And if we go all the way down to adjust, we can lower the opacity to maybe like 50%. And that's gonna allow us to put white text over the top of it, similar to what we did over here. What I will say is I'm just gonna grab this stack here. We can go ahead and paste it. Let's remove the button here. And for this text, I just want to center it. We'll also center it inside of the container as well. And let's go ahead and make this size a little bit bigger. So let's do like 42 pixels. And let's also make the text size a little bit bigger. And we'll recenter it. Let me head on over to the home page really quick. I'm going to grab this text element here. So we'll copy it. And this is Rocket League is like an in-game chat that's like really like just kind of like a well-known thing in the game. It's kind of funny. So they put it on their website. But we're going to put the text here. We'll say this is Rocket League. And now I want to have like another custom button. It's going to be similar to this one that we built over here, except it's not like in a repeater. So what I'm going to do is add a container. Or I'll just add this container right here. I do want this to be at the bottom and the middle. I don't want it to be that tall, so I'll make it about 100 pixels, maybe a little bit wider, and we'll recenter. For this one, I do want this one to be like the orange color. For the corners, I don't want it to affect all sides, so I'm going to turn off this link. And that's going to give us, or allow us to only add the rounded edges to 2 of the corners. And then inside of this, I'm just going to copy this text here. We'll paste it down below in this container. We'll say play now, and we'll align it to the center again. Now, similar to what we did over here, I want to add a hover effect to it. So we'll go over to hover, add color. And for the color, I just want it to be like a lighter version of this one. So we'll choose this color here. And then last but not least, we'll go ahead and add a button inside of it. We can change the text or remove the text, and we can add a link. For the design, we'll remove the color from the regular and hover state. Send it to the top left, and we'll turn on advanced sizing, and we'll set the width and height to 100%. There you go. And then for the last section, I'm going to show you a different method for creating a responsive button. What I will say is in Figma, I did create two button styles. So I created a button, just a regular button, and then a hover state for that button. And then I exported them as SVG files and uploaded them to Wix. Again, if you are following along, I did include those in the assets folder. But just like we did with this section above, let's add our 2.5% padding. We'll apply it to all sides, and then we'll remove it from the top one. Perfect. And then for this one, we're just going to make it a little bit bigger. And I want to split this into two columns. And we'll add a 2.5 VW gap here. And then for this one over here, I want to split it horizontally. And then we also need to remember to add that 2.5 VW to the vertical gap as well. Perfect. For this one right over here, let's start by just adding our image. So I'm going to come over to media. We'll do my uploads, more. And I believe I chose this one right here. So we'll resize it, place it in the container or in this cell, stretch it. Let's round the corners really quickly. I think I did 48 for this one. And then for the border, I chose this bright blue, and let's make it like a 10 pixel width here. I think that looks good. Let's just copy this image and we'll paste it over here. Let's stretch it. And for this image, we're going to choose like their RLCS, like their last like victory in RLCS. And then for the border, we're just going to change this to our orange color. Perfect. Now for this button that we're going to place down here, I do want to add a container. So let's add this container here. Let's stretch it. We'll make the color our dark blue, and we will set the radius to 48. And now what I want to do is add that button. So what I want to do is go to media, and here's our button SVG file right here. And if we head on over to Figma, this button is 120 by 42. So in Wix Studio, what we can do is set the width. If we unlock it, the aspect ratio, we can set this to 120 by 42. And then we can lock the aspect ratio, and then we can make it a little bit bigger. Since this is an SVG file, we can make it as big or small as we want without losing resolution. And also SVG files are smaller than JPEG or SVG or than PNG files. So it's better using SVGs where you can to help with load speed on your website. But let's go ahead and place this in the middle. And what I will say is with SVG files and even PNG or JPEG images, you can add links to them. So you can link this to whatever page that you want. But what we're going to do first is right click. We're going to place it in a container. And inside this container, I want to grab this vector art and I want to copy and paste it. But we're going to change this vector art to our hover state one right here. Perfect. And we'll just go ahead and align it to the top left, just like the other button. But if we go back to the container, or actually, no, let's grab this vector art here. And the first thing we're going to want to do is actually change the opacity to 0. So now the original state is showing. But now what we want to do is grab the container, come over to interactions, and we'll add a hover interaction. For this one, we don't want to affect the container itself. We want to affect the hover button. So under the layers panel, I'm going to grab the hover button. Let me make sure that this is the hover button. Okay, this is. And I'm going to rename this one to hover. And now if I grab the container, head on over here and add a hover interaction, instead of affecting the container, we want to select hover. And what we want to do is create a custom effect. So we'll just create a custom effect real quick. And when it's hovered on, we want to change the opacity to 100%. There we go. So now when we press preview and someone hovers over this, we'll see the hover state. But the one thing I will say is just make sure that when you do that, make sure you add the link to the SVG file. And typically I would also add it to the regular button as well, just in case the user is just really fast at clicking and they click faster than the hover effect can take place. They'll make sure that they still get to the place that they're trying to get to. But yeah, this is going to be the bento box style Rocket League website built here in Wix Studio with responsive buttons.
Very nice, Ryan, man. And then in record time too. This was basically 30 minutes with me running my mouth for like 10. Very nice. So with that said, I want to kind of like roll back to a few questions because the design, awesome. But I still like, and again, these questions are going to repeat, but I think we get a little bit better at explaining with each video. So, and I noticed this too. You really love to use VW when it comes to responsive assets as well as, what's it called? Let me look at Alana's. There was 2 questions. There's questions about VW and I had highlighted them, but the chat was going so fast. I tried to pin them and then I was answering other questions and they got away from me. But let's just start with VW from now, or for now. First off, I had a 2-part question. What made you feel comfortable using VW over other things? I know you explained this in other videos where you kind of found that just through playing around with the different settings, VW is what gave the best result. But how would you answer to somebody who is brand new or is a little unsure of in what scenarios to use VW? Like even for myself, I'm like, I don't really know. Sometimes I'll click and be like, I guess it worked, but I don't know if it's going to break. You know. So how would you explain to a brand new beginner who's, they see VW as an option? When should we use it?
Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on sizing for this section right here. And just for fun, let's make it like this blue color. For this section, let's say we used viewport height. When we preview the website, this is our viewport. And when we resize the screen, the height doesn't change. So VH doesn't give me personally a proper example of how responsive the website is going to be. However, if I change this section to VW, which is viewport width, so it's taking whatever user's width is, or their device's width, then when I preview the website, when I make the width smaller, the section also gets smaller, which is typically how I like to build my sections. And then when I make it bigger, the section also gets taller. So that's typically, this is kind of a habit I kind of picked up even back in Editor X. It just, for me, gives me a better, it shows me what I want to see inside the editor. And because it is still a responsive value, even when I publish the website, it still does exactly what I want. The only time I actually typically use VH is, let's say I want to create like this hero section that's going to take up 100% of the user's screen size. So I might set this one to advanced sizing, and I'll set the minimum height to 100 VH. And now, no matter if the user is on desktop, tablet, mobile, or whatever device that they are using, this section will always be or take up 100% of that user's screen. So that's typically the only time I use VH. But I found VW, for the most part, gives me or shows me exactly what I need, or what I'm. When I press preview, it shows me what I'm trying to build, and it actually makes sense. Whereas VH, because in preview, the height doesn't change when I change the width. It doesn't show the responsive behavior how I'm expecting it to show it. So that's why I use VW. In this instance, where I use, let's say I use 2.5% for the padding, but then for the grid gaps, I use 2.5 VW. You'll notice that when I try to change this to a percentage, there isn't a percentage option here. So what I will say is, in this instance where a percentage and VW are basically the same, so I could literally grab this section and I can change the percentage. Instead of percentage, I can do viewport, and I could apply that to all sides. You'll notice that the design did not change the amount of space that we have here. The reason is because percentage is a percentage of its parent element, which a section is basically the parent section here. And VW takes in the user's width. It doesn't take, it's a percentage of your user's device width. For example, if I have a container here and I add, let's just say we'll just add a button here and we'll change it to advanced sizing. If I send this to the left and I set the width to 100%, it's 100% of its parent element, which is the container. Because this button is inside the container, it's a child element of the container. So 100% is going to take up 100% of its container. However, if I grab this button and I change this to viewport and set this to 100, you'll notice that goes way off the screen because it's taking in the user's device width, not the parent element. In this instance where the parent element is the section, and think of it like the section is 1280 in width, right? And so when we add 2.5% padding here, VW is a percentage of your device's width as well. So 2.5 VW would also be the same as the percentage for 1280. I hope I explained that well. Maybe you can.
That makes it makes sense, but I think what it is confusing too sometimes. It's like, okay, so we're gonna use, in some cases, there's the ability to use percentages and maybe VW, but sometimes you have to use them. Like, it would make sense to be able to use viewport as a metric for the padding and viewport as a metric for the spacing between content, like the right. But you can't use VW for everything. So, for example, let's go back to the padding really quick. So we're getting there. I think that explained us. It got us into a level deeper in understanding. But now let's talk a little bit about this padding. So padding, you can't use VW. You have to use percentages for the units.
No, padding you can.
Okay.
The space. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. The space in between the grids. You cannot.
You have to use percentages. Okay.
Yeah. So you have to use VW in this instance. There's no percentage for gaps. There's only.
Okay. So you can use VW for everything.
Yes.
Okay, then that makes a lot of sense. That makes more sense. I was like, wait, it would get really confusing if I can't use VW for everything and I can use percentage. I was just like, how do you do the calculations and make sure things are correct when you're trying to measure some elements in the same section with VW and then you have to like pair it with percentage? That gets really weird. But if you can do everything,
what I would say is like this container, if we wanted to add padding to it, and we added like 10% padding, but we changed this to viewport and changes to 10, it changes it completely. So for elements like this, where inside of a container, I would always still use percentages. So I would do 10%. That way it always looks like this, but I would not use 10 VW. I mean, you can use 10 VW or VW, you just have to make it smaller. But for inside of elements like a container, I do use percentages as typically.
Got you. So basically, rule of thumb is basically for like larger things or the biggest container sections, play around with VW. As you start to get into the content inside the section, then you start to play around with the percentages, the pixels, some of the fixed stuff.
Right. So basically for the section itself, I try to use VW when I can, and then for anything inside the section, I typically do percentages.
Awesomeness. Well, Isaac in the chat is saying, thank you so much, Ryan. You explained this stuff so well. Thank you very much. It takes a village to like be able to go through. You explain it really well, and then you have to have someone like me who's just like also clueless to be like, all right, did you mean this? And then we file it down. So teamwork makes the dream work. But I'm glad this is making sense for you guys. Let's see. Do you guys have any other questions for today? I know Isaac was asking if you could share the link to the website. I know.
Sure.
Yeah. So we can, if you pop that over to me, or if you're already in the, so we can send that around to people.
Yeah.
And also, David, I see you in the chat saying, I have issues in designing form layouts in Wix Studio. Please make a video about it. I believe we do have a video on forms. If you have questions still and you're free tomorrow at 1 p.m. EST, man, join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. EST and Wednesday at 1 p.m. EST so we can actually help you specifically with the form issue that you're working on. It's in our Discord, the meeting. It's 1 hour long. And let me see. Thinking here. I saw Isaac made my brain go another way with the using the Mac, and I was like, I'm using a PC, but he's talking about you. But yeah, David, join our Discord. Link is down in the description. It is newform.community. Sign up. It's for free. Join us every Monday. Every Monday we have one of these sessions with me and Ryan, except next month we only have 2, but typically we have 4. But every Tuesday and Wednesday we get together with not only me, but the Wix support team. We have a session for 1 hour live where we answer your questions. We help you live with literally you send us the link, all that good stuff, and we figure things out together. So definitely join us there. And Isaac, what was your last question? Feel free to add that into the chat. And I'm going to grab the link for us so I can drop that in the chat. Give me a quick second. There we go. Thank you for the keeping calm with the silence, guys. All right. And again, remember, guys, we did mainly... Actually, Ryan, you let us know. Did we didn't do everything so that I was 100% responsive. But you can also... We didn't get all the nooks and crannies. That's a lot to do in now.
Nooks and crannies. But... I will say, like, for the most part, like, a lot of this is pretty responsive. The only thing I would change here on mobile is maybe this container's borders. I'd change this to like 64 to match the video, and I would maybe like adjust the spacing. And then for these 2 cells up here, I might try to like make them vertical. But that's, for the most part, that's really it. And I would just kind of maybe make this a more vertical layout versus have horizontal stuff, but not especially with bento box and using column or cells and stuff, it's not too complicated. But I do think we will in the future create a fully like responsive web page or something.
For sure.
For our workshop.
Yes, sir. But yeah, guys, take a look. I just dropped it in the chat. If you guys, let me look at we have about 10 minutes. Let me pull up chat again. Guys, I can't wait till I get my studio back. I was telling Ryan, I'm out here. Literally, I usually have 3 screens. Right now, I swear I'm like I have Batman set up, but on one laptop. One laptop screen right now. It's very difficult. Let me see. All right, Isaac, do you have one more question? I know you were just saying you're an MSI user. I was also one of those until it burnt out. But until that next question comes in, very quickly, I'm going to move us to our side-by-side really quick. I just wanted to share with you guys what's to come in not only the next couple days, but also how you guys can, because we will have time, since we're running into holiday season, Ryan's going to be getting married very soon. Very busy guy. He's luckily giving us some of his time. He's like, Brandon, listen, I'm getting married. We have very short time, but I can still come and help the community. So Ryan's going to be taking a little bit of break. We're going to be taking a little bit of break too, because our community is, some of you guys know, we're doing a little bit of a merge with another Wix community. So a lot of things are happening in the background. But the good thing about this is you guys have you've seen the first month of content, month and a half, about 5 to 6 episodes with me and Ryan. So you guys have a feel what Make It Monday is. And in our Discord, we have I'll link it in the chat. So you guys have, you guys have been very consistent with coming here. And you guys have left some feedback in terms of what you guys would like to see in the future, etc. But if you guys, in that link that I dropped below, if you guys want to share with us any suggested content you want to see for December, January content for what we're going to be doing, let us know there. Just let us know what you guys would like to see, CMS, animations, a specific type of responsive site. Let us know in that channel, because we want to bring you what you want. We love to make what we like, but this is a resource for you guys first. So with that said, Ryan, do you have any closing words for us, brother?
I just want to thank everyone for watching today's stream. And if you want to learn more about Wix Studio stuff, you can join the community or head on over to the Wix Fix channel. And I have plenty of Wix Studio videos there as well.
Yes, sir. You guys can find all of Ryan's links in the description down below. And as always, keep coming to Make It Mondays every Monday at 1 p.m. EST. We are working on a calendar so that we can you guys can just hit a button and you guys get all of the content, events, and everything that we have in store for you guys on your calendar, so you don't forget, but that's in the works. Again, thank you so much, Isaac, Brian, Nina, Dr. Chill, and really the rest of you guys. JT, thanks for coming again to another Make It Monday. And do not forget, join us every Tuesday and Wednesday in our Discord with your specific questions about what you are challenged with in Wix Studio. We'll help you guys out. All right, guys, have a great Monday, and we'll see you in the Discord. Link in the description. Bye, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.